Welcome to the Thriving Misfits, the podcast where we celebrate resilience, embrace diversity, and challenge norms. I'm your host, Fiona Young, and today we're joined by Debbie Mannas, an award-winning HR strategist, diversity advocate, and champion of talent cultivation. Apart from that, I know Debbie also as an amazing indie artist, and I had the opportunity to see her perform live. And also, she is the founder of I'm Tech, which stands for I Am More Than a Cover, a magazine for girls and young women that covers real-life topics to inspire them to make choices that are right for them. From her early childhood as a third culture kid to her current roles in DEI leadership, Debbie's journey is marked by innovation and empowerment. So join us as we explore her insights on navigating cultural complexities, fostering inclusion, and thriving authentically. So welcome, Debbie, on the show.
Thank you, Fiona. So great to be doing this with you. And it's all part of your amazing journey from a staunch DEI advocate, trainer, mentor. And here we are with your podcast after you've written your fascinating book.
All right.
On being a misfit.
That's right, Debbie. And thank you for joining the podcast. And we learned so much from each other over the past couple of years. In fact, we met each other in 2016 as part of a mentoring program that was launched by the Women's Foundation in Hong Kong. And even though now we're living in different countries, we're still connected. And that's what I love about us.
It's been a pretty amazing journey, right? And for me, it's symbolic, and it goes to show the importance of meeting different people you end up having longer lasting relationships with, because you are connected by strong values and a shared sense of purpose, rather than, whether you're the same religion or you're the same color or you're the same background.
Absolutely.
So these bonds, I think, are far stronger.
Oh, yeah. And it's also the friendship that we have cultivated over the past couple of years. And as I mentioned, you're an amazing indie artist, and I've seen you perform live on stage. Now, the audience, they would like to get to know you on a personal level a little bit better. So let me kick it off with some rapid round questions. So let's imagine you are hosting a DEI karaoke night. What song would be your go-to performance to get everyone in the spirit of inclusion, and also why?
So have you ever known anyone to not get up or sing to Dancing Queen?
Oh, yes. ABBA.
And for me, this is another thing about music. Music is the absolute uniter. If there's anything that people can relate to on so many different levels, right? From a purely pleasing to my ear level, to resonating with my deepest values, to bringing out my emotions, it would be music. But there is, this one song would be Dancing Queen, because I don't know anyone of any generation who doesn't know it and who would immediately jump up or sing to it, or, break the ice with it. Oh, so yeah, that would be it.
Love that song. Now, you are also an amazing mentor to a lot of young women, girls now. And I would love to hear from you. If you could mentor a very famous musician on diversity, equity, and inclusion topics, who would it be? And what's the first lesson you would teach them?
I haven't quite thought about who. Interesting. But I think I would always go back to musicians, actually, by their very nature, are one of the most inclusive communities that I've ever seen. And so for me, this is the joy also of being a musician and working with other musicians, because it's never about anything else but the music. But on the other hand, they can also be very cliquey and niche. So you could then have musicians that only move with jazz musicians, or rap or whatever, right? And you could have musicians that are united by protectionism of race or ethnicity.
Right.
because it is a very, very tough industry. And we've seen from the awards, how exclusive it can be and who wins at it, right? So there's discussions going on there. But when you actually bring musicians together and they're jamming, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
And I would encourage musicians to go with that soul. The issue is not so much, because once musicians hear talent, it's about the talent and it's about who you can work with. Because every time you work with a fantastic musician, you elevate your game.
Mm.
And I've seen that happen with me.
Wow.
I've
That's
been really lucky. But the issue is to get invited to the party.
right. And
So I think that's where a lot of musicians struggle, because it's how are you seen? What are your avenues to be seen? Because it is quite a community minded uh,
right.
population, right? So
Mm.
um, I don't know. We've got to make more spaces available for more diverse musicians. So I've twisted this around a little bit. It's never about the one person, because
Mhm.
everyone is struggling to be heard. It is a super competitive industry, and it's a very hard industry, and it definitely doesn't make the musician any money. So if you ask me why I'm doing this, is purely for the love of music and the fact that it keeps me sane.
Please keep on doing what you're doing. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. Now, can you share a story or an example from your childhood that illustrates how you learn to turn your adversities into an advantage? Because that's the ultimate theme of the Thriving Misfits podcast. We want to learn how to turn our adversities into an advantage. Can you share a little bit more about that from your childhood?
When you're a mixed child and from a mixed family, so I'm third culture, and I'm defined in the Constitution as an Anglo-Indian, um, probably for 3 generations now. Our customs were different. Um, we grew up knowing we were different from the discussions in the house, and so on. Some of them confused me a little bit, because not every member in your family is open-minded too, right?
Hmm.
But I had the privilege of being born in a very open family where no discussion was taboo, where my father actually walked away um, from some of the things he could have done, his clubs and so on, um, and brought into the house a mixed bunch of people from everywhere in the world, every community, every religion. His two best friends were actually, he had three. One of them was Hindu, and two of them were Muslims. And the Muslims were actually, one of them was Sunni and one of them was Shiite. And of course, we are Catholic, so we would go for everybody's festivals. And if it was Eid, we would get giant buckets, literally buckets of biryani from our Muslim friends, and they would be in our house, in and out. Um, so my dad, I think, was profoundly wise. And of course, my family is scattered around the world. So we would have people from, and they are mixed too, and they've married into different communities or races across the world as well. So, we would have people coming into our house from everywhere. My mom worked for Oxfam, so we would also have people from the BBC, for example. So my earliest memories were very naturally everybody,
Great. That's
you
great.
know.
We're already
So
embracing all these different cultures in your childhood.
already, and it wasn't discussed. Nobody talked about how anybody was different. But
Hmm.
then I went to school, and we were different then. And
Right.
when I tried to, well, when no, I met my husband of many, many years when I was 11. And in India, everybody is very inclusive because India is very diverse until it comes to marriage. Then it's arranged, or it has to be someone from your community, not just your community, probably your village, you know. Um, so, and then I'm mixed. I'm not that person from
Mm.
anybody's community or anybody's village, even. So these kind of things brought home to me that I was different. But the interesting thing is, being different is actually very empowering, because after a point, and you don't even think about it. Because you don't belong, you don't need to conform. And that is super empowering.
Wow, I love that. It rhymed.
Yes, you don't belong, you don't need to conform. So I like to think I belong to a community of like-minded people with a sense of purpose. And that for me is more important
Mm.
than anything, that somebody, any construct, any other social construct.
Wow, that's amazing. I will definitely remember that one. Now, how do your experience with music and also songwriting? You have written amazing songs. How has those experiences contributed to your identity and also your approach in HR and in the organization?
It's people often ask me where my inspirations come from, and I'm pretty sure they're thinking, what has she done? Has she experienced this? Where's it coming from? Um, Songwriters, poets, and any creative, as you would know, you experience or you empathize deeply. You can feel what's going on in the world. It does not always need to happen to you. Some things do happen to you, but then you use your imagination and you pull and your empathy. So when I write songs, especially about social injustice, it is probably from things I've seen or felt. Um, I wrote a song called "Mother, Are You Scared?" and it's really about children with guns and how children are weaponized. And there's no place in the end to run, right? And as I was writing, when it was born, because I was wondering how a mother feels, and I wasn't even a mother then. Um, how would somebody sacrifice their child, send them to war, arm them to go fight somebody else's war? What's going on? Are you numb when you look in the mirror?
Mm.
And so that song was born because of that. I went on Facebook one time and I did not like what was happening in my country. So I voiced an opinion, and then somebody jumped down my throat and said, you have no right to speak because you don't live here anymore. So I said, well, instead of arguing with you, I'm just going to write a song. And so that song was called Would You? And it's really about um, if I spoke of something that was unjust and I didn't live there, would you listen?
Right.
And if we all kept silent, the world would be pretty much a
Yeah.
mess, right? So um, there's that element, and there's also the love and the inspiration and all of those elements. Um, and then there's the element of working with different people. So that has been hugely enriching. So from creating my songs to producing them, to working with different artists, it's truly exposed me to very diverse people who think very differently from the corporate world. Far more creative. They need a lot more appreciation because musicians are also insecure.
Mm.
Um, we all are, right? And the way people think, the the community, the inspiration we get from each other, but also the patience that I've had to have to execute on people who may not always think in a corporate way about how important time is, and so on, right? So it's made me appreciate the talents and the beauty people bring while dealing with the other things that make them like that, right?
Mm, that's right. Wow, that's amazing. Now, you have been actively involved in so many different community initiatives and organizations, being a mentor on the Women's Foundation program. So, how do these engagements also influence how you show up in the workplace and how do you approach your leadership style, getting all these influence from this external initiatives?
Well, for one thing, it's meeting people like you, Fiona, really broadening my world, being inspired by so many different people. I think it's made me wiser. I wouldn't quite say wise, but it's truly made me a wiser person than I was, when I was much younger. Um, there's 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 that element. but there's also the element of recognizing some things when I see it. I'll give you an example. Um, because I've been working with I've known uh, you, and I've known Fern. She's just a beloved friend of mine that I've known for many years, and Shalini in community business. Um, and they are leaders with a very profound appreciation of human mind, um, and inclusion and belonging. And through Fern, I learned about the Kelly support group. And this is all, and then we were having the discussions about mental health and chatting,
Mm.
um, and then I also got involved. I was always, I've done my bachelor's in psychology, and behavioral science is very fascinating to me. So I've always been interested in the mental health issues, um, and seeing what's happening in this world of ours, having those discussions and what it means at work. Um, but then working with the Kelly support group, and this is before I became, I joined its board, I was understanding a little bit more of youth. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was with Kids for Kids in 2019, I was a mentor, and I joined their Powered by Youth program, and I was holding a workshop on songwriting for these youth. And I observed, I got them to do, a world cafe. And the kind of things they were writing on those tables was about loss. And this is, they're 16, 17. Their emotions, how nobody understood them, how desperate they felt, and so on. We turned it into a song, and we in the end resolved it by saying, believe in yourself, right? And so it became a little bit of a rap, cool song with the youth. But it struck me then how deeply they actually felt. And, I don't know about you, Fiona, but I never felt like that when I was growing up. Even in my darkest moments, I didn't feel hopeless. Um,
Unfortunately, I would have to say yes, I have felt that way. So it
you
resonates
know,
a lot with me. Yes.
yeah, so and that was in 2019. In 2021, December, my son was hospitalized
Mm.
uh, for for depression for 3 weeks, and that was over Christmas. And um, his journey before that, it helped me because there were some things that I recognized, but I never understood how deep it went.
Mm.
But I recognized it, and we got him help. So he was already seeing a counselor. He
Mm.
was already talking to the social worker at school. So when he actually felt these very extreme thoughts,
Mm.
these ideations, he was able to reach out to his social worker in time.
Yeah.
And then he got the treatment he needed. So I think for as a parent, being involved in community and really understanding the pulse of what's going on allows you to recognize some things both in the workplace and at home.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm also very much connected with the Kelly Youth Support Group. I've been supporting them since 2015 because at that time I wanted to reach out to an external mentoring program to especially support ethnic minority girls. So that was the mentoring theme of that year. And since then, I've always been very supportive of Kelly Youth Support Group because they do amazing
Mm.
work. And I'm glad that your son gets the right support that he needs, also because you were very observant of his behavior. And it resonates with me because when I was a teenager, I was also diagnosed with depression. And I
Oh
think
gosh,
yeah.
sorry to hear that. Mm.
And it's something that we all have to, it's a journey, right? It doesn't really, you cannot recover immediately. It's just a
Mm.
growth journey as well. And finding that self love and confidence that shows up when you get to be much more mature, right? Now, we talk a lot about mental health also in our personal conversations. So, how important do you find it that it is for individuals who feel that they don't belong to really prioritize self-care and also mental health. And maybe do you have any practical self-care approaches that you found particularly helpful for your own journey?
I'd say this is a hard one for me, but we were doing a psychological safety workshop, and I learned something new. It's called Q-tip. It means quit taking it personally. It's harder than it looks, right? Because it's very difficult to not take not belonging, being excluded personally. I'm in the beginning when people would talk around me in different languages, and I'm monolingual, so it's a bugbear for me, right? I was, you're inclined to think, who am I? That you don't mean anything to these people. They're talking in a different language. And then I realized, that's how they feel most comfortable. And I'm okay with it. So I got past it. So I think when you feel excluded, there are these things that go through your mind, and you tend to judge yourself harshly, right? Like, who am I that people treat me like this? And it's never about you, because they are people, they are involved in their own world. They're not actually paying attention to including anyone else. They're concerned with them. And this is why the work we do on inclusion is so important. Because not everybody can rise above it. So the one thing is, think about what you are doing to include or exclude other people, because we are all part of this as well. So I'm guilty. I do some, pretty exclusive behavioral things too, right? We all do. The other thing is, I'd say never give up on your hobbies. Always, always, always make time for doing the things that you love doing, because one day you will not be working. And what then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? And for me, this has been the most valuable thing. I never stopped singing. In fact, I honed it even more. And I love working with other people and doing, very purposeful things, because that's me. Other people may do something else, whether it's golf or whatever they do, right? But we sacrifice that at the altar of work. And I think we have to be very ruthless about prioritizing our time, so that we make space, because at the end of the day, it's very cumulative. When I started out writing one song 22 years ago, I have a body of maybe 400, 500, I don't know, songs and poems, right? You just get better, you hone your art, and then at the end of the day, you have a portfolio. So you're not starting from scratch when you're 45 or 50,
Yeah.
So I'd say keep your mind and your creativity and your inspiration active. Just make space for it, because it's absolutely worth it and proven to be worth it.
Right. No, that's so wonderful. And I think it's also great that you mentioned how to empower yourself to feel included. And as you mentioned, people don't necessarily think about us the entire day, because everyone has their own lives and their own dramas and their own narratives. So that's a great mindset to have. So as we wrap up this episode of The Thriving Misfits, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Debbie for sharing her inspiring journey and invaluable insights with us. Her commitment to cultivating talents, promoting diversity, and embracing authenticity serves as a beacon of hope for all of those who may feel like misfits in the world. So we hope you, our listeners and viewers, found this conversational as enlightening as for me. And also remember, no matter if you are on your journey, your unique experiences and perspectives are extremely valuable. So embrace your resilience, celebrate your authenticity, and continue to turn adversities into advantages. So be sure to join us for our next episodes. Make sure you subscribe us on YouTube and Spotify as we continue to explore stories of resilience and inclusion. Until then, stay resilient, stay authentic, and keep on thriving. Thank you for tuning in to The Thriving Misfits.